Virtuous living is a surprisingly hard thing to define. To some, it means being a nice person and doing as little harm as possible. To others, it means reposting political content in hopes of spreading awareness. Still others find time to live in the gym, depriving themselves of comfort in order to hit that elusive 225. In all these views, there are various traits that we aspire to, some more healthy than others. There is one virtue, however, that makes or breaks a person: conviction. Many young men and women are trying to find leaders to look up to. So may I introduce you to a character from my favorite book of all time, Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom's Cabin was written in 1851 as part of an abolitionist newspaper, and it is far and away my favorite work of fiction, as I said. I've never felt the depths of injustice in history, alongside the hope that there is still good in the world, than from this book. Certain scenes live in my head constantly and inspire me to be a man of conviction, and I hope that they can convince you too. But we should talk about what it's about with minor spoilers. It follows a couple of families of slaves in Kentucky who live on a failing farm. The farmer and his wife view slavery as a necessary evil, and when they need money, they very begrudgingly sell the humans who work on their property. It really is sick throughout the book to read about people treated like family members one minute and property the next. The constant problem that I found with these farmers who treat a family like this was the lack of conviction. Years ago, when Farmer Shelby bought Uncle Tom, he promised him that he would save enough money to free him. They have a relationship that is not as bad as it could be, all things considered, but with a farm going under, the obvious cracks begin to show. One may say they love somebody. They may say they wish them to be free, but when push comes to shove, Uncle Tom, the faithful, gentle leader of this family, is sold. It is one of the most unjust things to read, and just one of the times I felt myself just, ugh. A girl named Eliza and her son are also sold, but we will cover their story later. At first, Uncle Tom is sold to someone who actually seems like a decent person, St. Clair. He has a daughter, and the daughter just loves Uncle Tom. Tom never does hard labor and is trusted with the family, even though St. Clair's wife is an outspoken, horrible racist. St. Clair gets in arguments with his wife about this, says he hates slavery, and constantly says he will free the people he somehow legally owns. After 2 years, he finally decides it is time to file the paperwork that says Tom can go back and see his own family again. But tragically, he never gets the chance to. And then follows the worst part of the book. Uncle Tom and every other unfortunate person who has promised freedom for so long are immediately reminded that they have no rights without someone to fight for them. They are separated and sold in an auction that is disgusting to read. Tom's new owner, Legree, is a despicable man who abuses people so much that the workers say that this is a place where God does not look upon. At this new plantation, Tom is subjected to downright misery. He is overworked, abused, and drained. He barely finds any time to read his Bible, and when he does, he is mocked for it relentlessly. One of the saddest parts of this book is that some slaves were forced to beat one another, turning against each other and ruining them mentally. Legree, the plantation owner, keeps trying to have Tom whip a fellow slave, but he refuses. His conviction is too strong. Even after exhausting days in the sun, being treated like an animal, Tom struggles to read his Bible by the fire. Even when others say that there is no God here, he calls to one who listens in what he feels like is soul-crushing silence. And when called to strike his fellow image-bearer, he chooses to take the abuse himself, looking to one who endured abuse in the past for him. Uncle Tom is a model for conviction under extreme pressure. Okay, this all sounds so sad and terrible, and the book is filled with evil men without conviction and how mistreated people were throughout history. But that is why it was so powerful at the time. You can't read something like this and walk away on the fence, thinking that slavery was a necessary evil. Uncle Tom is a champion of conviction, while the people who are sickeningly called his owners get to do whatever they want and get off the hook. St. Clair and the Shelbys remind me so much of Jesus' parable about the two workers, one who said he would do his father's will and stayed lazing about, and one who said he would not and ended up working for him after all. We've looked at the lazy son again and again, but now let's look to one of my favorite chapters in all of literature to complete this illusion and bring some much more needed hope to this video. I mentioned earlier how a girl named Eliza and her son are sold around the same time as Uncle Tom. Well, they make a run for it and eventually end up knocking on the worst door possible. Inside is Senator Byrd, who is trying to enforce a law that would make it illegal for anyone to help slaves should they dare to run away. His wife is upset about this law, but he is adamant that this law will not be compromised. Then the compromises knock on his door. It may be easy for him to write a law that dehumanizes people, but when he sees those humans huddled around a fire, fighting for their life and freedom, his convictions are changed. He risks not only his reputation, a night of sleep, but even his own life for people whose rights he was just hours ago trying to take away. And there is the son who finally gets off the chair and does his father's yard work. This and other areas of the book are why I love it so much. It paints a realistic, gloomy picture on the evils of slavery, while still giving us hope that there are men and women with convictions left, even if they don't know it. I barely scratched the surface, of course. There are so many more powerful scenes, and I highly recommend anyone to pick up this book and challenge their convictions. But not only in this book. See, the one danger of reading challenging books is that you view the reading and ideas as challenging, and leave your practice unchanged. But as confusing as it is to Protestant ears, our Savior says, "Whoever loves me keeps my commands." And of course, the greatest command is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. But the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. You don't wait until tomorrow to help yourself. You don't view yourself as an object to be used by someone else. And when you're in need, the last thing you want is a philosophical argument without action. I hope that Uncle Tom's Cabin will inspire us to be men and women of conviction. Now I can close by indulging in what seems to be my favorite part of these videos, bragging about my friends. I'm blessed to know people of conviction. I know a man in Thailand right now giving out haircuts and showing people kindness they've never received before. I know an aspiring pastor who visits the most secluded section of the homeless shelter and leads a Bible study for men who don't have anyone to talk to. I know plenty of women on leadership for IJM, an organization that fights human trafficking. And these are just the people who aren't shy about the ways that they are serving God. I know countless others who quietly donate to the Children's Hospital, support women and their unborn babies in desperate times, and even a guy who visits prisoners despite them constantly trying to scam him. These are the Uncle Toms who inspire me when the world says God is not here. This kind of talk brings about nothing but despair, but men and women of conviction have a lot more than words going for them. They have an attitude of following through and doing the right thing, no matter the darkness or gloom surrounding them. And that convicts me.